Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications, comment, upvote the video. All of those things will make us very happy. Also, you can join our Subtext community. The link is down in the description. I think there's a 2-week free trial on it, but if we hear stuff, we put it out. There's something on there right now that we just put out about a potential basketball thing that we might need to keep an eye on as well. I'm here with John Garcia. It's Saturday morning. It's football recruiting time. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well, Steven. It's a busy time of year, and for you, you've got to do it on the football and basketball front. So I appreciate you fitting me in.
Yeah, exactly. And we're getting to that time of year that is kind of, I don't want to say a lull time, but in May it should slow down a little bit before camp season starts in June. But we'll see exactly how this true off-season portion of the football season, it kind of comes to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got spring football at the high school level on top of all of that. So could be worse for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, the transfer portal is something we don't usually talk to you about, but I do want to get your opinion about Shane Hooks, who just committed to Ole Miss last night as we record this on Friday. What do you know about Shane? I know he made that obscene catch at Jackson State, but what all do you know about him?
Yeah, that was the highlight of his collegiate career to this point, but don't take it as he's just a flash in the pan. This is a big, physical, productive wide receiver, was the leading receiver for Jackson State last year in their double-digit win season. They don't get as far as they did. And maybe Dion doesn't have the job at Colorado without the emergence and consistency Hooks provided, which I think reinforces how big of a get this was for Ole Miss, because Colorado was one of his finalists, a school that I think a lot of people just expected Hooks to eventually end up at, as so many other former Jackson State players have. But as he took his time and kind of waited the process out and began to take other visits, including Ole Miss last weekend, it became clear that this thing could happen for the Rebels. And this is the type of prospect that Kiffin covets in the portal. Big, physical, productive wide receiver. And I think you look at 6'4", 205 and you say, okay, wingspan, back shoulder ball, contested catches, and those are all yeses for Hooks, but don't underestimate his ability after the catch. And I think that is where he becomes so interesting because, as you said, everyone's seen the viral one-handed catch. I think it was against Grambling and all the things you expect from a big receiver. But Jackson State used to throw it to him short and let him cook, as the kids say. And there's a reason his nickname is Hollywood, because he's creative after the catch, not only with his ability to be physical and play to his strengths and size, but there's some wiggle, even though he's 6'4", 205. And there's a real sense that he's got good instincts and vision and a plan after the catch. So I think that's really advantageous for Ole Miss. I think this group is starting to shape up into 2023 as this nice combination of pass catchers from a size and skill set standpoint. And there's no shortage of size now going forward with Ole Miss. And I don't think a guy like Hooks, who was a leading receiver at that program at JSU, goes to Ole Miss to just be one of the guys. I think there's a potential for him to ascend to be one of the premier players on this entire team, much less the offense or the wide receiver core. So this is a really big get for Kiffin, for Nix, for kind of the whole crew, Weiss Jr. as well, as you start to look forward and plan how you feel about Ole Miss going into 2023, I guess independent of whoever QB1 is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at things like the skill positions at Ole Miss right now, the wide receiver position, the running back position, the quarterback position, the tight end position, it's just an embarrassment of talent for Ole Miss at the moment. It's ridiculous. And you just wonder how Shane Hooks, does he just look at it and say, okay, I can take Trey Harris, the all-conference guy that came in from Louisiana Tech, or Chris Marshall's on the other side making all kinds of stupid plays in the spring game. And it's just amazing how Lane Kiffin's able to do this.
Yeah, plenty of size and a variance there from a skill set perspective, but you understand it. This offense is geared towards, it's like basketball. It's about ball distribution and spreading things out quite literally. So there's a sense that, you might not have 150 targets like he did last year, but there's still an opportunity for Hooks to be a truly impactful player. And obviously, doing it at the SEC level has its own benefits. And I know that's probably a part of why he picked Ole Miss. This is a Floridian kid who grew up in SEC country there, close to you in Orlando, went group of 5 out of high school with Ohio, and then transferred, of course, to play for Coach Prime there at Jackson State. So I'm sure there's a lot of motivation behind this as well. Hey, can I do what I do at the highest level? And if you can be productive, 10 touchdowns last year to Hooks' name, if you could be that type of productive in the SEC, you're probably going to get paid to do this professionally. So I do think that there's sort of this last shot mentality going into this thing as a grad transfer that will only benefit his time and ability to assimilate once he does get to Ole Miss for good.
All right. And let's change gears a little bit. And I've heard rumors over the last couple of days that maybe this kid might have a future visit. I don't know exactly when, but his name's Terek McCant. He's a Maryland commit. He's out of the Tampa area, which is honestly in my neck of the woods. What do you know about Terek?
Versatility. I mean, you talk about a modern football player and a modern offensive weapon. That's McCant, a kid who can legitimately line up at running back or slot receiver at 5'9", 5'10", 175 or so, and he can beat you with polish at either of those positions. True speed and space type of player that I think you could utilize as a 3-down guy, no matter where he lines up. So curious to see with Ole Miss offering in February, him committing to Maryland in March. Obviously, that communication has been consistent since that point. Curious to see, though, is he more of a running back or more of a slot receiver? I think he could do each effectively. He could be a true change of pace running back, a third down type that is so comfortable blocking and with the ball in the air, of course. But after the catch or after he's handed the football as a running back, there's a lot to like here. He's got all the wiggle and lateral quickness that you would expect from a productive Florida athlete. And I think the plan right now for him at Maryland is to play running back, but they just turned over coaches at the running back position after he committed. So I do think that there's clearly a door open for Ole Miss and maybe other programs to make an impact on McCant before the final decision comes, whether it's on signing day or a little bit sooner. But interesting and fascinating from the Ole Miss perspective. Already got Chris Davis committed, big physical downhill running back that's going to profile a lot like the backs we're getting accustomed to at Ole Miss. McCant, totally the opposite. So it'd be interesting to see how Ole Miss approaches this thing going forward. And look, he hasn't visited a lot of schools, and this will be his first trip to Ole Miss. So I certainly think that while he secured a spot at Maryland, the door could really be open here for some changes of heart down the line.
Yeah, and they've also changed back to the script Terps on the helmet in Maryland,
which should help him.
Oh, we just lost John for whatever reason. John is back. There he is.
So yeah, if they're going to the script helmet, then I think he should stay committed because it's a beautiful helmet. Sorry, Ole Miss fans. It's gorgeous there. And look, and I don't want to discount Kevin Smith's ability to recruit his home state. We know that's been important both in his first stint at Ole Miss and obviously now that he's back in town. I think that could be a prospect that really becomes synonymous with the impact of Smith as a recruiter in his home state in particular.
All right, this week we've gotten reactions on everybody on the Grow Bowl, and for you, I want to talk about Grow Bowl visitors, namely Brady Prieskorn, the brother of Caden Prieskorn, who did not catch a pass in the game, but he came down. He's a Michigan kid. Tell me a little bit about Brady.
Brady's great, a big dual threat tight end, meaning he can line up as a big receiver or he can absolutely help you as a blocker with some physicality. As you mentioned, he's from Rochester, Michigan. And look, Michigan wants him. I think we should probably put that out there. That's the perceived favorite. He's been there more than any other school, all of that stuff. But there's a reason he's still uncommitted. He's only got a top 8 out right now, which suggests his recruitment might still have plenty of legs to it. And he's already got back-to-back visits to Ole Miss under his belt, independent of having Big Bro on the roster, which is obviously a huge X factor for the Rebels in this potential recruitment. So him getting back on campus was great. He's reported great things about Ole Miss from that March visit, and he's duplicated that for the April trip to see his big brother in action there in the Ole Miss colors for Prieskorn. So look, if it really is going to draw out and be a long-standing recruitment, I think those things help Ole Miss's pursuit. If it was going to end today and he was going to wrap things up and shut it down completely, probably better news for the Michigan Wolverines that obviously have him in state and have recruited and developed well at the tight end position. But Ole Miss and the SEC present something different for him. So I do think that's going to be a factor. Not a well-traveled kid. I think Ole Miss is the school he's been to second most behind Michigan. So I think that's another advantage potentially for the Rebels, especially ahead of official visit season where he's more likely to take one to Ole Miss to get another fresh look at Big Bro and the program itself. So I really like the Rebels standing here as sort of the primary contender for Michigan, even though, Alabama and Florida and all these other schools are on the offer list. It looks like there's no official set at this point. So I do think if he does get there and wants to prolong the recruitment, Ole Miss will grab one of those official visits and you sort of let the chips fall where they may thereafter. But there's no doubt that there's some emotional pull and obviously family ties that help the Ole Miss angle.
Yeah, and for people that think that I am all sunshine and rainbows on this show and call me a homer and get out in the comments here, I think now we need to talk about Isaiah Autry. What do you think, John?
Yeah, tough one. We've talked about him a lot on the show, top offensive tackle type in the state of Mississippi, and the trends have been pushing towards Oklahoma, and inevitably he came through with a verbal commitment to the Sooners on Friday. Just a huge pull into the state of Mississippi, independent of the family ties to Marcus Dupree or any of that. Just the late pull for Oklahoma. One of the most recent offers into Autry, had him on campus for a visit early in 23. But even after that, there was a sense that Ole Miss was in decent shape to keep him home. Or if anything, Auburn was going to profile as the top threat to the Rebels. But Oklahoma kind of swooped in last minute as Autry was beginning to end the recruiting process. And when you schedule a verbal commitment on a Friday and you're visiting that school on a Saturday, it's probably linear that you're going to head to that program. And that's what Oklahoma was able to accomplish with Isaiah Autry. So we'll see how he handles things here going forward. But I think there's a sense that the state of Mississippi is loaded this cycle, and it won't just be Egg Bowl participants jockeying back and forth for some of these top-level recruits, and I think Autry is going to be another great example of that, much like we'll talk about going forward with the Kamarion Franklins, the Jamonte Wallers of the world, even Braylon Burnsides of the world, where a lot of schools are circling back and really trying to make an inroad ahead of trying to get these kids out of state. But Oklahoma's done a good job lately with Autry, and I think it's going to pay off with a verbal commitment.
All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Every dayers tomorrow on the show, we'll have a standalone interview with Tom Vanderford, the one that you heard on Friday. It'll be available as a standalone on Sunday. Anyway, thank you very much, John, for stopping by today. And, man, it's always fun.
Yes, sir. We'll see you soon.
All right, take care.